Good morning, On Purposers. You are right here, right now, for a reason. Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will empower ourselves and others to live lives with more passion and purpose. How you doing today, Jared?
I'm good, Ollie. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, getting it going.
Yeah,
getting it going with some coffee.
How's the week been since we last checked in with all our viewers?
This has been really good. It has been really good. We're getting a lot of feedback. Really appreciate the purposeful practice coming in. We're going to have to do a final check and announce the winner of the t-shirt. So we will announce that on next episode. I'll make a note here so we can have a giveaway winner. We announced that on the previous episode, which was small acts and big impact. So hopefully all of you got your On Purpose homework, whether you submitted it or not. Hopefully you did execute on it. What was your practice review like? What did you uncover, Jared?
Yeah, I just have really been mindful of interacting with the people around me that sometimes we take for granted. So I've been loving having conversations with the cashiers at the grocery store. You know, I was thinking about this the other day. One of the places I spend the majority of my money in life is the grocery store, right? It's expensive to eat. Yet a lot of times I would just go in, get my stuff, and run out and miss the opportunity to interact with the very people that make it possible. You know, and I'm fascinated with learning their stories. Like, why are you a cashier? Why do you work at a grocery store? How did you get here? And just being mindful that they have a story too. So for me, it's nothing monumental other than paying attention to the small activities I do every day and the people that help make them possible.
Yeah, definitely. That's
How about you?
One. Small impacts, big way. Or small acts make a big impact consistently. You doing that, speaking with the cashiers, that's awesome. For me, I thought about how small acts like showing up to practice week after week, day after day have a massive impact. I've been practicing grappling martial arts since I was a young man in high school, and same thing with Toastmasters. I've been practicing almost every week. Intermittently, there's been some gaps where I haven't been in Toastmasters, but for the past 7 years since I was in college, and because of that, it's had a big impact. I'm a high-level grappler now. I can grapple with the best of them, and I'm a very high-level speaker now. I can speak with the best of them, and it's because of consistently executing on small acts that have had a big impact. So
yeah, and I think that's important for people to realize is this consistency, right? A lot of our focus goes on to the big event or the big things that happen in our life, but our life is made up of a series of small steps, a series of small things either we do or don't do, and that practice is important. So be sure to get the most out of this podcast by doing your purposeful practice, submitting it, sharing it, so we can help hold you accountable, check in with you, and help get you to where you want to be, which is that most purposeful life. Remember, there's no ads, there's no cost to be here. So what we ask from you is like, share, comment, so that the podcast can grow, so the movement can grow, and our community continues to evolve, so that we're allowing more people to find that ownership of creating purpose in their life.
Yeah, it's beautiful to hear y'all's feedback. I do want to give a shout out. We are at the beginning of this podcast, where with the amount of purposeful practice that comes in, we are kind of able to keep track and see who's submitting it consistently. And I'll use first name only just for privacy purposes. But shout out to Missy. Been really enjoying your emails and just seeing how you're going through life, living with more purpose. And I'm really happy to hear that the practice is helping you. So shout out to one of our on-purposers out there. Great work, and hope to see more from you guys. So getting into today's episode, just a quick recap of the small acts and big impacts. Stay on that. But today's episode is titled Handling Hatred and Finding Love. So we all know, you turn on the news, there's enough hatred going on in the world. You know, we don't need to look too far to find hatred, right? And since it's so abundant, how do we handle that? How do we handle all of this influx of hatred that can seem overwhelming at times, especially if you're really well connected with the news and mainstream media? So Jared, how do you handle hatred? How do you handle people with just very, very different ideas than you have. What do you do?
Well, I think for me it's evolved over time. I think when I was younger, I would have argued with them and tried to prove that they are wrong and I had to be right. And I think we've talked about that in previous episodes as far as how we interact with one another. But as I've gotten older, I realize I learn more from you not being just like me. And it's okay for us to disagree, and it's okay for us to have completely different views, but there's always middle ground we can come to. And let's be honest, we're talking about this now because we've had 3 horrific violent acts in the last week in our country. People that have lost their lives for doing nothing more than trying to live their life, and they just end up at the wrong place at the wrong time. And they become a victim to somebody that's filled with hate and decides they need to kill people. And then the aftermath is what bothers me, right? Yeah, that bothers me for sure. I feel terrible for the victims of that. But then I watch the follow-up, and it's almost like we're being pulled apart. You either have to believe this or you have to believe that. And every news article, every media report is separating more. Gun control here, mental health there, no gun control there. And we're always being torn. We're always being pointed at, he's different, so you got to be over here. You got to protect your beliefs, so I can only watch the news on this channel because it's the only one that tells me what I want to hear, but I can't watch the news over there, or I can't interact with you on this because you disagree with me. And it's just time for us to really look at what is the motive to separate us all the time. Who benefits when we're always divided and we're always hating on each other? Why is that possible, right? And I think sometimes we're a little too emotional and we're a little too simple in our approach to it.
Well, what do you think the motive is?
I think it's, quite honestly, it's very beneficial to politicians to keep the average voter, which we are, I would say we're average voters, pitted against each other, right? Because let's be honest, these shootings have been happening. Go back, if you want to go all the way back to Columbine, 1999. They're happening with more frequency, which means whatever the hell we're doing isn't working. Yet when's the last time you've seen a real new idea and solution on how to fix this? I haven't. I'm literally hearing the same arguments I've heard for the last 20 years now. Gun control, don't let anybody buy guns. No, everybody should buy guns. Right? When do we get to the point where we start to look at, how do we come together as a country? How do we come together as humans and start helping recreate the value of life that we seem to have lost somewhere? And that's what I want us to talk about, is how do we find a solution? Because yes, you and I can continue to sit and point out our differences all day. That is not working. It hasn't worked, and it's not working now. And unfortunately, when the people we trust to come up with solutions can't get it done, what we're seeing is more people continue to lose their lives.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with you. There's definitely a motive, right? We're talking about handling hatred, and I think right now as a country, how we handle it is we multiply it, we distribute it. It's the top story, it's the cover story. We want to hear about the shooting, the details, the everything. We multiply and distribute hatred because it's a commodity. No one's going to read. No one's going to watch the news. News people too, the politicians, they know ratings come. Everyone stops to look at that car crash, right? Everyone wants to look at that and what happened there, because it was trauma. For whatever reason, the way the human psyche works, we're drawn to that sometimes. And news stations are aware of that. They distribute this. So that's what we're doing right now to handle it. I'm grateful and thankful that I don't really watch the news. For me, it was I kind of learned on social media, someone posting only because I'm from Texas. Like Texas strong, like El Paso shooting in the Walmart. I still don't know all the details. And I don't. A lot of people are like, oh, well, you have to stay informed. Don't get me wrong, that's sad. And I pray for the families and the victims, and I understand that that's hard. But frankly, I don't want to consume all that. I don't want to sit there and watch the news and have debates about gun control and all this, because at the end of the day, I know that at this point, I can only make so much of a real impact with who the lawmakers are, right? To where it's not a priority for me to spend a lot of time consuming and talking with Joe Schmo about what I think about gun control and gun rights and all these things. I'd rather double down and push my gratitude.
Right.
I'd rather get some more of these episodes out. I'd rather distribute passion, love, and purpose like we're doing instead of distributing the hatred. So I think that you're absolutely right. There is a motive behind it, but we don't have to follow that motive. We don't have to follow what those people at the top who run these media stations, who run government, who run all these things are putting and distributing for us to consume. We don't have to.
No, we have a choice,
that motive.
And we have a choice to sit back and allow it to continue and just kind of consume what we're being fed, or we have a choice, like you talked about, to go, wait a second. I have all this information at my fingertips nowadays. Instead of watching the news, I could go find a motivational video. I could go find a video that makes me feel good about myself. Like, you're in control of that. So one of the things that bugs me is, okay, you mentioned Texas Strong, which is great. But why does that shit always have to happen after a tragedy? Why weren't we strong beforehand? Why weren't we strong taking care of the weak in our community? Why weren't we strong coming together to make sure our kids in our community had what they needed, make sure our families that are down on their luck had what they needed? Why do we constantly, in a place of so much abundance and so much opportunity, we wait until tragedy strikes to try to come together?
That's it, Jared, because we have so much opportunity and so much abundance. Like we talk about here, a lot of us don't really experience struggle. Some people never have to. Some people can food, water, shelter, everything at their fingertips, don't talk to family, just in media, whatever, experience no struggle. And that's why they're so inclined to act when outside trauma or struggle or fear or whatever happens, because they're not used to that. And that's why we want to live our lives with more purpose and give ourselves struggle to build on, to challenge us to reach out, connect with others, to push through those little uncomforts of, oh, I might not look cool, or oh, I might not this, to build bonds instead of waiting for catastrophe to happen before we're finally inclined to act.
No, I agree with that. And here's something I've been thinking about that I find interesting is when you allow people to hate and hate starts to consume you, it isolates you, right? Hate is usually a very isolating event. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to be hateful. I want community. Right? I don't want to have hate running our lives because it isolates us instead of bringing us together. Now, can we agree to disagree? I hope so. Should we have different opinions? Yes. We don't all need to be the same, but I also have to start having some tolerance for your opinions, tolerance for your different beliefs. Because if you bring your set of ideas and your beliefs to the table to solve whatever problem, and I bring my experiences, my beliefs, my thoughts to the table, usually between the two of us, we have a pretty good solution. But we're so pitted against each other right now that I can't possibly let your opinions be part of the solution because, well, you're wrong. Mm-hmm. And where the hell is that getting us? Mm-hmm. 3 shootings in a week. Let's wake up.
Was that it? 3 shootings in a week?
I think it was a week, maybe 10 days.
Dang.
And they were all different places. California at a festival. Dayton, I believe it was Dayton, Ohio, at a shopping place. And then I forget what the one in Texas was because I'm trying, I learn from it. I'm like, okay, I can't just sit here and be in this 100% of my time. But yeah, 3 substantial incidents where hate was a big motive for some reason. And man, we've got to do better at starting to really recognize we're in control of that. We can make a change. It's not somebody else's job to start changing how we treat each other, how we interact with each other. And it's just like last week's episode, small acts, big impact. Quit sitting back waiting for the politicians, waiting for Washington, D.C. to solve the problem of how we treat each other locally. Let's us fix that. Let's start caring about each other a little more. Let's start being accepting of different ideas and different perspectives.
Amen. Yeah, small acts. Small acts is what we can do right now at this level to make a big impact. So you said something that really resonated with me, and it's hate is isolating.
Think about it.
And I think you're absolutely right. I was thinking about it while you said that. In times where I've been filled with anger and hatred, to where it's just like just me. I'm gonna get over you, right?
Right.
It's not really a sense of community or a team. Hating together. It's really just it is a very isolating feeling.
Well, and what comes to mind for me is probably the one hate group that I think is probably most synonymous with America is probably the KKK, at least in my view, right? Like growing up where I grew up, like you knew that was bad. Where were their meetings held? They were in secret in the woods. Well, why are they in secret in the woods? Because it's hate. You can't, it's hard to walk around just hating by yourself in the middle of a group of people that are having fun. Like you go by yourself and build up that strength. Hate isolates. You think about the stories of all these people doing these shootings. One common thing, they're loners. They're by themselves. They're isolated. Well, I have a hard time thinking anybody isolates themselves and goes from happy to wanting to kill people overnight. It's a progression. What if when we started seeing that kid sitting at the lunch table by himself, instead of making fun of him and further isolating him, we had some compassion and we ate lunch with him. We just said hello. What about the clerk at the grocery store that you may look down upon because they don't make as much money as you? They don't have the status in life you do. What if you're nice to that person? What if you just care about people? Can you make a difference? And I'm not naive. Trust me, after 21 years of police work, I know bad shit happens. But it shouldn't happen because I don't care about people. And I can't solve everything. You can't solve everything. Our listeners can't solve everything. But what if being nice changes one person or puts a smile on their face? And if we all did that, how much duplicatable is that? How much of an impact does that create from a small thing?
Big impact.
You're gonna interact regardless. We're gonna walk by each other on the street regardless. I can have my head down on my phone and give you no interaction, have no idea what's going on in your world, or I could look at you and say, hey, good morning.
Yeah.
Might make a difference. But what I'll tell you, what doesn't make a difference is what the hell we're currently doing.
Yeah, no, and it will absolutely make a difference. It may be a very, very small difference, but even to me, if someone says good morning and I, frankly, I've achieved a lot of what I've set out to achieve. I'm very grateful. I'm very blessed. Health, career, relationships, I have a lot of great things in my life. I'm a very confident person. But even when someone tells me good morning or says hello to me, a small act, it impacts my day in a positive way, and I'm grateful for it, and I like that. Can you imagine how big of an impact you would have on somebody who sits in isolation, who never communicates with people, who thinks the world is full of hey, good morning, and a smile? How big of an impact that can have? Every grocery store clerk that you talk to, who knows how much a big impact it can have. So no, I think that's great, and yeah, hate is isolating. Hate is isolating. I really like that. So Jared, how do you handle when someone has been isolated for so long that there really isn't coming to a middle ground? To where like for them, like they have been isolated, their hatred is strong, and they're hating on you or your beliefs. Do you have any stories of how you've handled that, or any insights on maybe how you would if you've encountered something or someone like that?
I think what we're doing right now is a perfect example. I mean, not everybody agrees with us. Both Ali and I are very active on social media, doing a ton of YouTube videos, sharing our beliefs, Dat Grat, the B Nails, the Team Hardy stuff, the gym stuff. So we get definitely by being out there, we get our share of people that don't agree with us. And I've grown to realize, like, you not agreeing with me is not a personal attack. You just don't agree with what I agree with. You don't agree with what I think. And I'm okay with that. And I think that's where we got to get, is being okay that we don't always have to agree. Now, if you start personally attacking me, and it's full of, there's a difference between being disagreeable and being hateful. If you're hateful, I'm just not going to give you time, right? Because it's clear to me that emotional engagement of words is what you're after. Well, I'm not going to give that to you. I'm just going to continue to do what I do, and if you're paying enough attention, I'm betting we're going to start impacting that hate. Whereas I think before in my life, I would try to go head on with it, and then it's emotional, and then neither of us get anywhere, and then we never talk again. Whereas now, actions speak louder than words, so you may not like what I'm doing. You may not agree with what we do, but I'm going to continue to do it. And the fact, if you're continuing to even post negative comments, show up and ridicule stuff, you're spending your time watching what I'm doing, so it's having some kind of impact, whether you want to admit it or not. I think, to me, that's kind of where I'm at. How about you? Because you're out there a ton, and you push the envelope on a lot of stuff. So you're definitely going to get people that 100% disagree with you.
Yeah.
How do you handle that, and what's kind of your strategy for that?
Yeah, it's definitely situation by situation. And it's changed a lot over the years, like you said. I remember I definitely dealt with a lot of, what's the word? Just undeserved hatred, like racism and stuff in my oil and gas career, with a lot of oil and gas landowners and things like that, mineral owners. I think I've told this story about a woman one time. I called and her to lease her acreage, and she's like, who's this, blah, blah, and I was like, Ali. She's like, Ali what? I was like, Ali Abu Salam. And she's like, what kind of terrorist sounding name is that? Like, well, just like lost. It was extremely rude. And in those situations, I had to stay professional. And it was, honestly, last week's episode, small acts, big impact, just being professional, being courteous, and not letting it affect me. Not really letting it affect me, and even though it did, but in the conversation I didn't show it and just kept executing. So handling that is not taking it personally is a big thing. Not taking it personally, and understanding that hatred is coming, that's not their true self, right? I really try and see the divine in everyone. I like the word divine, whether you're religious or not. In most religious texts today, it says that the Creator, God, or whatever you want to call it, made us to His liking, essentially saying that we all have a godly essence to us, right? We're the most advanced species on the planet, human beings. We have so much grateful to be privileged for. And I try and see that in everybody, even if they're the worst of the worst, a murderer, a rapist, a child abuser, whatever you want to call it. I really try even the worst people to remember that. To remember that, at least, that they were at least made with this. And Abraham Lincoln said this. He said that if I were in his circumstances, I probably would have acted the same, when he was describing one of his war generals who basically had a chance to end the Civil War if he had followed Abe Lincoln's orders, but he didn't. And Abe Lincoln thought of like, well, what if I was in the middle of that war and I had been hearing shrieks of terror for all these days? And I try to think of that. So when you can look at it like that, then hate, you're just, you almost feel sorry for the other person and just want to give them love and compassion. When you're like, wow, like that hatred's for real. Like that is what you're projecting.
Yes, I think that's an interesting topic or aspect of what you just said. So I want to ask you this. Do you have to agree with everybody to offer them love?
No, you don't.
But why do we think we do? It seems to me like even amongst, say, gun control and no gun control, we're split. You have to, you don't have to. Even in love and hate, we're split. Like, I love this group, but these groups so hateful. I can't be part of them. Well, what if you tried to love them too? Would that counter their hate? What if instead of having to agree on everything or anything, you just accepted their opinions for their individuality? Would that start to change them and move them from being isolated to being back part of the communities?
Oh, yeah. It would take some time.
Sure.
But it would have an impact. A small act consistently will create a big impact. And our episode is titled "Handling Hatred and Finding Love," because it seems like, at least in mainstream media, that there is more hatred in abundance, right? So we have to handle that, and we have to search for love, right? Instead of handling love and finding hate. Why would you want to find hate? But it's reversed like that, to where, again, negativity, stuff like that sells.
Right.
Division sells, because in everything, teams, like, why do we even need countries, right?
Right.
The division makes for selling, and competition is good in certain aspects. So once it gets to a level of hatred, no competition is worth that. No competition is worth that.
And I think it's interesting because, how do we find love in people or situations that are filled with hate? I think the recent events are perfect examples. A hatred act costs people their lives. An act of, I would call it cowardice, picking on innocent people. And hate unifies communities. So it's possible. It's possible for communities to come together. It's possible for people to come together. Because the same group of people that are now Texas strong were Texas apart 2 weeks ago.
Right.
They couldn't agree on anything because of this belief or that belief, but now all of a sudden in tragedy they can come together. So how do we come together without needing tragedy to do it?
We put smaller components of tragedy in our day-to-day lives. Struggle, fear, right? You might think it's a tragedy when you're running up the mountain and you're dying. Oh, I'm not going to make it. That's a small tragedy, right? You're not going to make it. But you're experiencing that adversity that we need to go through, that struggle that we need to go through as human beings to truly appreciate things. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, especially in our country, the United States of America, where the most shootings happen, we tend to have this desire to act in a really positive way after big tragedies happen, instead of, hey, I've been talking to the grocery clerks, I've been sharing gratitude, I've been letting everybody know that I appreciate them in my life every time I get the opportunity, right? We wait for these moments. So how do we find the love? And it is we make it a habit. We make it a habit to be a part of our daily life.
And we look for it, right? Be intentional in seeing the good in people. Be intentional in seeing the good in the world you live in. And it doesn't make you weak, right? I think we have this idea that if I say hi to you first, now I'm somehow inferior to you. Right, if you know what I mean, like that macho, like, oh, I'm this tough guy. And trust me, I've been the tough guy. I've done tough things in my life, and I'll tell you, being isolated and carrying around this, well, I can't say hi to anybody first, mystique doesn't get you very far.
Yeah.
So what if we just set out every day to be kind to people and to really understand that behind every situation are people. Humans, highs and lows, ups and downs, beliefs, hatreds, prejudices, judgments. What if we understand that they're going through the exact same things we're going through, and we have some compassion, we have some kindness? Does it start to change things? Because I do not believe in 99% of these situations, people wake up and just decide, that's what I'm going to do today. You can look at the history of it. It's usually planned out. They slowly slip off the radar of life. They go from this group to disenfranchised to isolated to lone wolf. And I'm not dismissing their responsibility by any means. They chose this. But what if somewhere along the way, somebody invested a little more in them, would it have changed?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
And you know what?
We can't say for sure, but here's what I can tell you. Whatever we're currently doing doesn't work.
It's not. And a fun exercise to do is, what if we were born into that person's life and had those exact same circumstances. It's a scary thought, but it's a pretty good chance you, me, one of our listeners could be a mass shooter too. If they had experienced that years and years of compounded isolation and hatred, I mean, what's the worst punishment in
isolation in prison?
Is isolation in prison, right? That's the worst possible punishment. Worse than the death penalty is complete isolation. If we had years and years of this and had people who shat on us and spit on us and hated us, you, me, anyone could be a mass shooter too. And I think that when we can really start to look at each other as ourselves and think, this is just me in a different experience, right? This is my brother, this is my sister. Really think of Team Human. Right, you talked about adversity. I guarantee you, if we had aliens invade this planet and it was Team Human versus Team Alien, we would all come together.
Right.
You know, we would be the most unified unit. But again, why do we need to wait for an alien invasion? Why can't we be Team Human 100% all the way around right now? And I think it starts with not taking anything personally, number one. And number two is seeing yourself, seeing the divine in every person that you encounter, and having fun with that exercise of like, wow, I would probably be that exact same person if I was born into that, right?
And nobody intervened to help me see opportunity. Nobody took the time to let me realize I could be different. You know, last week's episode, Small Acts, Big Impact, you heard the story about what Bruce meant to my life.
Yeah.
What if he hadn't stepped in, and now this 12-year-old, I was full of hate. I was fighting all the time. I was miserable. I had moved to a new place where I didn't fit in. I was no longer a cool kid. I was the outsider. People were picking on me every day. What if he hadn't stepped in and included me, but I continued on this path that I was headed? Where would I be? I don't know. Thankfully, I don't know, because he did intervene. How many people around us on a daily basis do we just walk past and never give a second thought to that our kind word, our compassion, our greeting, our making eye contact to even acknowledge they exist may be the little spark to get them thinking there is hope in the world, there is love in the world, there is opportunity. But we go through our day doing what we do every day. And I want to ask this for our listeners. How many of you get outside your circle to find different perspectives, to hear differing opinions? Or are you always surrounded by people that think just like you think, agree just with everything you agree with, and do exactly what you do? Because that's one of the ways that we can really kind of stunt our own growth, is by not allowing ourselves to be around differing opinions. Not partaking in the discussions when we know we're not going to agree on it at the end, but we can find mutual ground to disagree and be agreeable to disagreeing.
Yeah, and that's growth, right? That's what opens your mind. Yeah, I love that. So Jared, even for people like us, to where we're very fortunate to be in places like Trials, to be in places like Fort Collins, Colorado. I love this town, with very friendly, outgoing people. You know, it's not like Houston where I'm from, to where people do say hi, make eye contact. But what if for some of our listeners to where that sounds exhausting? You know, maybe our introverts, or like people who may not be able to consistently do that, or who just aren't used to that. What do you think, maybe on a base level, or maybe a couple ideas of what do you think needs to be done in our world to increase love and lessen the hate? What can we do as individuals, as communities?
I think to me the biggest lesson we can learn from these recent tragedies is realize that people of different colors, ethnicities, religious beliefs, sexual orientations, socio-economic status, political affiliation have all somehow managed to come together after tragedy. So why don't we look to bring that together before the tragedy? Let's quit making tragedy what unifies us, and let's choose to be unified every day. Here's what I would actually say is let's choose to actually live our life like we're telling our kids to live their lives. How many parents, I don't know one parent that, and I'm sure there's some, I don't know them, that wakes up and says, okay, little Ollie, I want you to go out today and only talk to people of your race, only talk to people that look like you, and be mean to everybody else. We don't tell them that. But yet as parents, a lot of us will practice that. We'll only go to places where people agree with our beliefs. We'll only go to places where we're not challenged on anything we believe, where we're comfortable. Let's live life like we're expecting our kids to live life. Let's show them how you can agree to disagree, how you can sit down with people of different everything and still find commonality, because under the root of our beliefs, under the root of if we have money or don't have money, underneath all that stuff, you're humans. And what do you crave? You crave community, you crave love, and you crave somebody actually giving a shit about you. Right? And when do you crave that the most? For most people, it's their teenage years. When they're completely lost. They have all these hormones raging. They don't know what they're going to do. Let's give people places to find that. And we have churches and we have different groups, which is fine, but those all require people to come to them. Right. And what I'm saying is as we as an on-purpose community go, wait a second, I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to make eye contact with strangers. I'm going to say hello to people. I'm going to get to know the people that do things wherever I'm at that oftentimes I overlook. Here's a little example. Those of you that go to places have custodians. Without having to go do anything now, name the custodian of your building. Guarantee 90% of people are going to be like, oh, I have no idea. Well, yet that person provides a clean environment for you to do what you do every day. You know what I mean? Like, let's just choose to start appreciating all the small things that go on around us that are done by human beings that want to be included, want to be valued, and want to be part of the community.
Yeah, amen.
And maybe I'm simple, but I don't think it needs to be any harder than that. I don't need Donald Trump, whether you like him or don't like him, to make a law for me to decide to care about people. I don't need the NRA, whether you think we should have guns or don't have guns, to make something up to where I choose to care about the people I'm going to see today.
Yes, amen.
So think about that. If we all do this in our communities, I don't care if you're in a little small town somewhere or a big city or a place like Fort Collins, if you choose to care about the people you interact with, which is your choice. You could choose to walk by them or care about them. Now we can start to make change. Now we can start to build community.
Amen. No, that's...
walls aren't going to fix this shit. More gun laws aren't going to fix it. Different presidents ain't going to fix it. Because why? 20 years we've been watching this happen.
Right. And guess what? If most of us put half as much, even just half as much energy as we put into arguing what we think about gun laws or what we think about the president or what we think about this and that, which we frankly don't have any control over, put half as much energy into doing small acts of showing love and kindness and gratitude in our communities, in our worlds, it's going to have much larger impact than just blabbering away about what stance you take on all of these issues and why Trump should do this and why so and that. Go out and talk to your cashier, talk to your custodian, ask questions, smile at someone, make some eye contact, dat grad somebody, win a free t-shirt, do a couple dat grad interviews. And that is what's going to make a massive difference, a big impact in our world.
And here's the reality. What if it doesn't? What if being nice to people doesn't change the world? Are we any worse off? Because being mean to each other isn't changing. Being mean and hating each other isn't getting us any better. So why don't we try the alternative?
Yeah. And here's the thing, Jared. It will.
I believe it for sure.
It will 100%. And I know from experience, because honestly, like I said, I just found out about the shootings. I didn't know there was 3 until now, because my world that I have created and manifested is full of so many people who radiate, gratitude, love, community. I mean, we have our Trials Tribe, we have our Dat Grat community, the Bee Nails Colony, we're Fort Collins, Colorado. The world that I am in, that I have put work into manifesting this type of environment, is the result of small acts consistently having a big impact.
And conscious thought. You're conscious about where you spend your energy, where you spend your time, who you let in, where you do this.
Right. What's coming in? What are we consuming?
Yes. Too many people unconsciously just get fed hate. And that's what it is. I don't care what people say. It's hate. The murder, the mayhem, the car crashes, all the people, the death, all that's hate, man. It's all bad news for you.
Yeah.
So let's do this. Let's go out and try to love each other. Let's go out and try to be kind to one another. And I bet you'll find you're going to be happier. You'll attract more happy people to you. And you may actually make a difference in someone's life.
Yeah, amen. And really, do we need to consume it, really? I mean, so many people get wrapped up in the details of, what happened with the shooting? What trying to find a reason. Because they had this and that. Instead of, as soon as you hear about that, why consume anymore? That should be the motivation to go, okay, let me say a prayer for these people, keep them in my thoughts. Let me go make a difference right now, right here, right now in my community. Let me go do a Dat Grat interview. Let me go speak to my custodian, to my cashier. Let me go ask people let me try and go spread more love, as opposed to finding out the details and the degree. That consumption, that just being in that sphere of hatred, which a lot of us don't realize, just consuming that, watching that on the TV, reading the entire article of where the killer was from, why he did that, who he talked to, all these things, you're consuming that hatred, which you're saying, you're hitting right on the head, produces the thought leads to the act, right? Then you just find yourself in this circle, and I can't tell you how many mindless political arguments I've witnessed, just been looking at people, at a bar or whatever. You didn't do shit. You didn't change the gun law. You're just wasting time and effort, not making any type of difference.
Yeah.
And it starts with spending so much time consuming information that doesn't serve us.
It doesn't fulfill you, right? It leaves you empty in the end. And the truth of the matter is, you can choose how you interact with people daily in your world. And if you make the most of that, I think you're going to find a lot of this other stuff is far less important. What's going on in Washington, D.C., some people think it's very important to you. Some don't think it's important to you. But I'll tell you this. All the people you walk by in the street, all the people that do jobs that serve you, all the people that you serve in your job, you have an opportunity to impact all of them through kindness, greetings, small acts.
Yeah. And that should be more important to us. The person right in front of us, right here, right now, physically you can touch, see, hear, should be more important than everything that you're seeing on the screen. Your community, this is our world. What's in front of you, this is your world. And we don't need to immerse ourselves in whatever is going on.
Yeah, what if we decided to value all the actual relationships we have versus putting so much energy and effort into the media, the superstars, the famous people, and what they're doing? What are the politicians doing? Who's on this trip? Who's going? Who cares? The reality is your communities are suffering, and we have people that don't feel like they belong anywhere. And I'm not just talking about the acts of violence. I'm talking about the people that are coming from other countries. I'm talking about the disenfranchised in your own community. Let's look at how do we improve locally? How do we improve where we are? And a lot of that comes from just caring and deciding that you want more and you want to be different, and you're going to greet people and include people and be inclusive in your circle so that people feel heard, they feel valued, and they feel part of a community.
Amen.
And I think that's the thing for us, this On Purpose team is a community, and we're grateful for all of you. Even if we agree to disagree, I love it. There's a place for everybody here. So why don't we give them some practice, Mr. Ali, and we'll put a wrap on this week's episode.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Jared, I want to call an audible here with
let's do it.
purposeful practice, just because of what we covered. And I think that the first step is, of course, taking inventory, having awareness of what do we currently do. Listeners, what do you currently do that is impacting the world in a positive way? Whether you do it every day, whether you do it once, twice a year, every week, whatever. But what have you done before? Take inventory of what you do or have done that impacts the world in a positive way. Because I don't care who you are, you've done something to where you know it had a positive impact on someone, something, some people. So take inventory of that. And second piece of the practice is, how can you improve accepting people with different opinions and finding love in hateful situations? And we already spoke a little bit about that. First step is not to take it personally. Right, never take any of that personally. So dive deeper into that. And then, of course, part 3 is email your findings to onpurpose.official@gmail.com, and you will get a reply from either Jared or I, or both of us, most likely both of us.
Yeah, and I want to thank everybody for being part of the community and for what you bring. Please remember to like, share, comment so that we continue to grow. And I know this is kind of a heavier topic, but I think it's important because it's current, it's going on right now, and you're getting lots of opinions from lots of different places. And I want to weigh in because I think we can do better, and nobody else is going to make us do those steps. Nobody else is going to make change unless we as individuals choose to change. And I want to encourage us to really explore that and look forward to reading and hearing the homework on this episode and seeing if we can't, as a community, really start to be that leading voice of change.
Yes, sir.
Cool. All right, team, remember, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We appreciate you being here, and we'll see you all next week.